Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Inside the Lines. Today I am mourning the loss of the Phillies. So is John's pocket. But we move on. I put on a hat to represent a successful team that's going on in my fan base. So with that said, John will be in the chat answering some previews to this thrilling World Series that we will be having. Derek's in the chat with all the nuts and bolts related to all of our things, NBA, college, NFL, MLB, all of it. So we're going to focus a little bit on NBA today. We're going to talk about some narratives this season that you're going to want to look out for early in these games tonight to help you make some decisions coming up. So, Steven, why don't we start with here we go. Hold on. We'll start with some of the early games. We'll start with Boston laying 3.5 at New York. Different looking offense this year. What are you looking for to see from this team?
Yeah, at this point of the year, these are the things I'm specifically looking at because I think that depending on how things go, there may be a lot of early season value. Not, everyone at this point is still NFL focused and college football focused. So very little attention on the NBA, and that goes for the odds makers as well. So there's a lot of good smart money opportunities traditionally at this point of the year. So Boston, New York, I'm looking at obviously Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Are they more confident as an offensive team? The two last year, they took a step back defensively, and then they got, traded Robert Williams. So, but Porzingis is a really good rim protector, and Drew is obviously a great defensive point guard. So I'm just wondering if they'll show the intensity on the defensive end that they had 2 years ago, or if they look to outscore teams. On the flip side, this is Thibodeau. What year is this, Jake, for Thibodeau?
Year number 3.
Yeah, so it takes a few. Look at his history. He turns teams around right away defensively, and after a few years, that grinding style and I think just the tone of his voice gets the teams, and then it gets the players. And then you add in the fact that there's all these rumors that Embiid and New York basically saying, "Hey, we'll give you everyone but Jalen Brunson for Embiid." Will those rumors combine with year 3 hurt New York's scrappiness? And without them giving 110%, they aren't the team that they are during the regular season usually. The next one, Houston, Orlando. I was really down on Jabari Smith coming in as a rookie, but then I've done a 180 on him. I've mentioned this several times on this show that he hit a game winner in a meaningless first game of summer league, but I think it just shot his confidence up, and he's been shooting pretty well. So I'm eyeing to see if he'll go from a 30% three-point shooter to even a 37% shooter with, Van Vliet as point guard, and his confidence increase. And if he does that, then you might get a lot of value in some point and three-point made props for Houston. I also want to see if he's aggressive on the boards because Houston was a very good rebounding team last year, not just because they missed a lot of shots, but because they actually had young athletes. So if Jabari Smith can be a true stretch 4 with playing as a rebounder and a shooter, you might get some value on Houston early on. The other side, Paolo Banchero, I want to know if he's going to go from a 20-point per game guy to a 25-point per game guy, but shoot from 43%, go down to 39%. Is he going to prioritize his scoring, shooting, his points average over efficiency? And are they going to allow him to do that?
Right. And I see a lot of questions in the chat as well about picks. We do have a few picks after we go through these narratives as well, and we should have time to answer all of yours. But let's move over to Cleveland in Brooklyn. A few players to watch. Do Garland or Mobley start to take over as Donovan Mitchell didn't sign his contract extension? Are we seeing some stars outbreak? And then on the other side of the ball, what happens with Mikal Bridges and Ben Simmons as well, right?
Yeah, so the model and Mackenzie, you were on HQ the other day mentioning how we love Cleveland as a regular season team, not only because they were good last season in regular season, but as a division winner. They actually had a better point differential than Milwaukee, who won the division by several games. And given Milwaukee's lack of motivation necessary to do well in the regular season, I love Cleveland. I'm a big fan of Darius Garland. And so I'm kind of curious to see if he'll take a step up from a 21-point per game scorer, see if there's some more balance. Instead of 21 and 28 for Donovan, is it more 24 and 24? Or maybe 23 and 23 with Evan Mobley going from 15, 16 to the upper teens, even 20 points. So that's what I want to see there. And then I want to see if Mikal Bridges can continue being not only a prolific scorer, but an efficient scorer as the man. And see if Ben Simmons is, based on his prop lines, Ben Simmons is not expected to be returning to prime Philadelphia form, but based on his statements and his highlights of actually making threes in
Always about the
an empty court, actually being on camera making threes. I know there was no defense. We'll see if he emerges as a real player.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wanted to hit some questions in the chat about while we have this game up with Jaylen Brown usually having a big opening night. If we want to head to the model, see where we have his point value here. Jake, if you have any opinions as well.
I mean, I was looking at this as well. I mean, we don't have value in the Sims, but I don't mind that play at all. I feel like he plays well against the Knicks because they focus on Tatum. And it's interesting, the Knicks defense ranked 19th in the league, even though they have Tom Thibodeau. So he's supposed to be this defensive guru as a head coach, but he just wears his players down. So I don't mind this play there.
And the reason why the model at this point in the year, you don't have the normal NBA routine where 2 or 3 players are out. And so it's like a standard case where, the Knicks were a 116 point per game team at home last year, 114 overall. The implied total tonight is 110. The Sims have it slightly higher at 111, but that 5% drop in overall projection points is why Jalen Brunson's coming in around 5% less than what the odds would have.
Let's move to our second slate of narratives. Big Cheesy was asking about Jordan Poole and his shot attempts. We'll get to that as well. Do you want to hit that right now and see how we feel about Jordan Poole?
Yeah, that was. I had the exact same question. I grew up as a Washington fan, and it's been tough. And Jordan Poole is my least favorite player in the NBA, so it's a delight to have him in Washington. So, I don't know if we're going to give him 20 shots a game or not. That's what I'm watching for this game. I know we're not going to go for any kind of, they're going to tank statistically. So that I have no insight into that. I will eat my own foot if he shoots above 40% from the field this year. Ben Mathurin is the guy on the other side that I'm looking at. Will he take a year 2 leap? What do you think, Jake? Because he came out of nowhere kind of.
Yeah, he's looked like it all depends on the game, because some games he'll go off for 20 in 5 minutes, and in other games he just doesn't look to assert himself in the game. I was really high on him coming out of college. I really like him. I just don't know, because it's so hard to know with Indiana players. Like the last 5 years, they're the one team that we can't figure out. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I thought Chris Duarte was all poised to make a year 2 leap, and then they just benched him and he got traded. So.
Let's move to some games on the board here. We have New Orleans at Memphis. Now we have Zion, a big storyline of just seeing if he has chemistry with his teammates, what that even's going to look like. But on the other side of the ball, Marcus Smart, what he's going to look like. So someone you want to keep your eye out for so we know how to play these props moving forward. And can Memphis even out-rebound teams like this without Adams and Clark?
Yeah, so the model actually has a lot of value on Memphis, especially the line going all the way to now New Orleans. I see his favored -1 in a lot of books. The reason why we had to downgrade this is because the jawless Memphis Grizzlies were awesome, right? I think most people watching this would remember that their record is better without Ja. But that was also with Tyus Jones, primarily Steven Adams and Brandon Clark. And even Dylan Brooks, as much of as bad as he was shooting the ball, he actually had a good statistical impact on the team in terms of overall plus minus, even with his bad shooting.
Especially on underrated defender.
Yeah, so with 4 of the key rotation players from those jawless Memphis Grizzlies no longer there, and then you added Marcus Smart, who's certainly a really great defensive player, but sometimes Smart tends to look at himself as the veteran leader who needs to, unfortunately, lead in the offense with 2 minutes to go, and he'll start just firing away. So, I can't trust that pick. And then on the flip side, I think Zion's awesome. I want to see if he's getting along with his teammates, if there's any kind of high fives, a little pat on the butt. But Trey Murphy's out, and he's out for a while, and he's a great statistical player. He can jump out of the gym, and he's a phenomenal 3-point shooter, especially, not as good on the road, but who is. So with him out, I'm trying to see what kind of consistent perimeter shooting they get.
We move to John Collins now on the Jazz, Sacramento at Utah. Sacramento we're going to see if they are still a strong performing road team here, and who are we looking out for when we're looking into props for this early season?
Yeah, the thing about they have a guy, Sasha Vezenkov, I guess he was like the player of the year in Europe, right, Jake?
He was
Jake
the EuroLeague MVP.
Jake spent his free time analyzing from college football, playing European basketball, player props, and
They've been getting me. So
I'm not even joking. Yeah.
Well, I think 90% of players are former D1 basketball players or played a couple of years in the league. So I know most of the players, and then the other ones I'm just looking at these European books to see if the American books are way off. So that's where.
And since with the time difference, you can play games during work instead of doing your job. You could bet generally on the side. All right, I see what you're doing. That's why you don't answer the slacks between like 1 and 3 p.m. Jake says, "I'm at the gym. I'm walking the dog." No, he's just doing that. Anyway, Sacramento was great on the road. They're better on the road than they were at home last year. And I attribute a lot of that to them coming out of nowhere and surprising teams and teams taking them lightly, which is not going to happen this season. Utah was really good at home. And if they can win more than a third of their road games, they could be a sneaky good play, which I know yesterday Jake was talking about. So I'm interested in this Vezenkov guy, see if he's the next Peja Stojakovic. They're not the same country, but it's all European bigs, fairly tall, good shooting, European shooters with size. John Collins they bring up because he's a player that can load the stat sheet, but the team in Atlanta last few years was actually kind of better with him not in the lineup. And even things like 2-point percentage, which you think would be improved because Collins was such a great athlete and a great lob threat, their team 2-point percentage would go down when he's in the lineup. So I don't see him as a positive impact on Sacramento, even though you would think he would be a good fit from his profile. Last is obviously Dallas and San Antonio. We got to watch Wembanyama. Dallas were really fading hard as far as a playoff team. I'm looking to see if the Spurs without a true point guard, if that's going to be a problem. Or maybe Wembanyama play point guard. He dribbles well for a 7'5" guy.
Yeah. I like that.
And is Luka in shape? Luka is in shape, right? He's skinnier at least. I was the first one to point out last
year post game. So
I thought he looked really heavy at the beginning of last year. And I think I was the first to say that, and I was proven right. And I think he can gain weight pretty quickly.
Yes, we'll see how him and Kyrie shape out together and if they can make it through a season healthy, and have good chemistry. So those are some narratives to look out for. Now we still have a few model value picks for you. I'm going to give you an A pick here with Chicago versus OKC. Not probably a popular pick, but if you look at last season, despite the narratives, they really ended up with a similar record.
Yeah, I mean, the Chicago started 2 years ago out with the best record in the East, and then after the All-Star game and Lonzo Ball's injury, they kind of fell apart. And then they disappointed last year, and they only went, including the play-in games, 41 and 43. OKC, their preseason win total last year was probably what 20. It was 21 and a half, I think, Jake. And we projected 17 and a half wins, and they more than doubled that. So yeah, bad on us. But they more than doubled expectations, whereas Chicago's preseason total last year was probably around 47 and a half, and they came well short of it. But in the end, statistically, they had the exact same team. They were both 41 and 43, including the play-in. They both made the play-in. They both won the first game of the play-in. They lost the second game. Chicago was up big with a few minutes to go against Miami, who went on to the finals. So, and they both had a -2. They had a +1 point differential, and they were both, considerably, better at home than on the road. So, yeah, Chet Holmgren is a big addition to OKC. The public, based on the expectation difference, really is valuing OKC, and nearly 80% of the public's betting OKC. This morning, Chicago was actually, you could get -105, and they were a slight dog. You can't get that anymore. It went away. And now it's like -135 because this is a case where you'll see this happens in the NFL all the time, but it usually takes a couple of days, right? NBA is different. It happens every couple of hours. So between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., so go to sportsline.com or even the night before, look at our A-rated plays if you want to get the best values early. Because while in football, you might have till Tuesday or Wednesday before the lines move in our direction. In NBA, you have around an hour or two. So unfortunately, you can't get Chicago. Chicago is now like a 2.5 point favorite, despite the overwhelming public support on the other side, because anyone who uses a stat in the NBA betting splits and looking at splits, home, road, and that kind of thing is a very a good way to go. So the smart money, I think there's also a little bit of that betting action where people were intentionally putting money on one side, knowing that there wasn't a lot of action on this game. So you could influence lines pretty easily when the public's so high on this side. And so there are some rich dudes out there who could play both sides, manipulate the line, get even money on Chicago, pound that line at even money. And that's been switched over here. I'm not one of those guys, unfortunately. But we still like Chicago here in this spot.
Yeah. Again, NBA is going to be a lot faster paced, which is great why we are going to be a daily show now. So we will have value for you guys every day and hopefully can still get ahead of the lines considering we'll be on 6 days a week. Let's go to some player props from Jake for today that he has value on. We'll start with a Pacers player prop. They're playing Washington and Jordan Poole today.
Yeah, Nick asked about this question. I played them over 10 assists. I don't mind 10.5 at plus money. If you get that plus money, we have him at 11 and Steven Sims. The big thing about this is he averaged 11 assists at home last year. We have him for 11 assists this game. And Washington, they were the 7th worst team guarding point guards last year. So I think this is a really good matchup for him, especially in game 1. I think he'll come out passing the ball a lot, getting these young guys involved. So I really like that play.
We'll move over to a veteran playing Boston, Julius Randle, over 8.5 rebounds.
Yeah, so Julius Randle, he has hit this number in 4 of his last 5 games against Boston. And our Sims love Robert Williams. And without Robert Williams on this Boston team, Julius Randle could get some more rebounds. The big thing is if Kristaps gets boards because he's 7'3", but he's a lanky 7'3", he's not as strong. So Julius Randle should be able to box him out. So we have him at 9.3 rebounds. I think there's plenty of value here, especially given the matchup history.
Because that line was like 10 for most of the last season. And
it was 10 for most of
his injuries. He had bad rebounding lines in the playoffs, which cost us like 3 or 4 times. And so now the market's responded like as if he's only an 8.5 round rebound guy when healthy is 10.
Mm-hmm. Let's go
He's
back
had
to
all off season to recover, so it should be fine. So that's why I like it to start the season.
Let's hit one more prop here. We have for the Hawks, back to that game playing in Charlotte tonight.
Yeah, so you get Sadiq Bey. You get him at 11.5 in some places. So if you get 11.5, I got an underdog at 11.5. It's 12.5 on Prize Picks. I still like either one. We have him at 13 points. I just like fading Charlotte's defense here. I mean, Atlanta has 2 point guards, and I think the one position that is going to benefit from 2 point guards is going to be shooting guard and small forward, him and DeAndre Hunter. And Hunter, you never know what you're going to get, but Sadiq Bey should hit 3-4 threes this game. So I like Sadiq Bey.
All right, good stuff there. A lot of NBA to cover. Again, we'll continue to cover NBA through the week. We want to get to some of our updated NFL lines. Now, we've seen a lot of movement. 2 games that have swung sides completely. I'll start here with Atlanta at Tennessee. Now, this line has moved. Let's see if it wants to show up. There we go. So this line, the look-ahead line opened as the Titans were 1-point favorites at home, and now this has swung to Atlanta 2.5. You can maybe get 2, but now 2.5-point favorites on the road. People are starting to realize, the narrative of Will Levis and starting rookie debut quarterbacks don't have a great time. 5-16 straight up, 7-14 ATS. So that's a big narrative to drive the public. But we also realize what the sharp money is probably realizing too, is that Atlanta is a 16-point per game offense right now, but they really should be a 24-point per game offense, given how many red zone turnovers and mistakes they have had. The regression to the mean, Steven, would have to be executing in the red zone now, because so people are starting to realize, people are thinking this team can't score, so we're watching this over-under come down. So not a lot of value on the spread necessarily, but if you can keep watching this total tick down, it might be a great spot to hit the over, thinking Atlanta can have a pretty high team total.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I mean, they've been leaving a good 7-8 points easy on the field the last few games. Maybe probably more than that. The last few games, probably like 14 points on the field. So they should be a team averaging 23 instead of 16.
Yeah. So good. This is a good get right spot for them. Probably a sneaky overplay that you can look into. Let's move to another team where the line has completely moved. Green Bay opened as 2.5-point home favorites. Now, after the Vikings win, they are now laying 1 on the road. This total has also come down. Do you think there's any value here on this play?
I'm not sure about this play, but I think that the steam is all in Minnesota for the right reasons. Because Green Bay can't score out of the half. Not only could they not score out of the half, they couldn't score out of the half after a bye against Denver. Like that's inexcusable. That means that your quarterback and your offense has absolutely no clue to execute a game plan that was good enough for Aaron Rodgers to win 2 MVPs in a row. So that I think that, and Minnesota held 3 teams in the last 4 to 17 or less, and they held KC to 27, which is 27 sounds like a lot, but it's less than what KC averages. So they did a good job there. So a month of solid defense from Minnesota.
Yes. Absolutely. One more game that we hadn't gotten a chance to look at yet were the Bengals on the road going to the Niners. Niners laying 5.5 regardless of the loss on Monday. Do you think people will be overreacting to this line? Do you think this stays around 5.5 through the week?
The line is held strong at 5.5, which is kind of an odd number to hold because there's really little chance, very rare to be a game ending 5 and 6. So I thought that it would have ticked one way or the other, but the public is on Cincinnati because everyone thinks that they're rested in Joe Burrow because they've won a couple of games in a row is all cured. In San Francisco, people are concerned about the injuries. So I think the reason why the line hasn't moved is because a lot of people don't think San Francisco lose 3 games in a row, and then on the flip side, they know that at the same time San Francisco still has Trent Williams on the injury list, left tackle. So without that's keeping that from going to 6. But hey, as a Ravens fan, I just can't imagine San Francisco losing 3 in a row.
Yeah. So, and as a team in the NFC, I just hope they do lose 3 in a row because that makes my life easier.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that is all we have planned to talk about today. We'll hit more college football tomorrow when we get some more injury updates. We'll talk about some more value plays, and we'll hit a Thursday night football. A little bit of a preview, see if the model has any value on any of those plays for you guys. But until then, continue to ask us your questions on Twitter. We are live 6 days a week, 1 p.m. through the week, and Stephen and I will do the look ahead on Sunday night, so always look out for that. So good luck with your bets tonight. Everybody say a prayer for the city of Philadelphia because we are not doing well. So with that, thank you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.